punishing winter storm is threatening a huge stretch of the country tonight. 2 people reported dead in Kansas. Over 3,000 flights are cancelled. And in New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie has declared a state of emergency. So what better time for a hot-button debate about what's causing all this extreme weather? Joining me now to go head-to-head, Bill Nye, science educator and CEO of the Planetary Society, and Ken Ham, the president and founder of Answers in Genesis US and the Creation Museum. Gentlemen, welcome to you. You've just had this very high-profile and much talked-about debate on creationism versus evolution. So, Ken Ham, let me start with you. Who is responsible for this massive snowstorm raging across America, God or science?
Actually, the Bible tells us the whole of creation is running down because of man's fall, and so we do have extremes in weather patterns today. But, there's been climate change ever since the flood of Noah's day, we would say, massive climate change. So, it all depends on the weather patterns. It's what we see today, the way things interact. Creationists have no different explanations on what's happening. They talk about lows, they talk about highs, they observe what's happening. So it's no different than what an evolutionist would talk about.
Bill Nye, you've been looking there at Ken, as you have been all evening in the debate. I was catching some of it. With a look of vague bafflement on your face. How did you think the debate went tonight? I mean, did you learn anything which was even remotely persuasive to you, that maybe you're barking up the wrong tree about this whole global warming business?
No, and let me say, just inherent in Mr. Ham's answer, first of all, it was a very respectful evening. I thought we both gave it our best, and I appreciate the opportunity. But just notice that inherent in his response was that the world is winding down since the Great Flood, and that somehow the climate change, what I heard, what I infer from your remarks, is that this is sort of a punishment for humankind. And I'm very skeptical of all three of those things. Very skeptical of the ancient flood, very skeptical that the world is winding down, except its orbit, its spin is slowing because of the pull of the moon and the tides. And I'm skeptical that it's a punishment from a deity. But with that said, there's more heat energy in the atmosphere than there has been in a long time, and the rate at which the heat energy is being added is what's causing all kinds of trouble, or all kinds of potential trouble around the world. You cannot tie any one event to climate change, but interestingly enough, there is new statistical evidence, and I encourage you to check out the Union of Concerned Scientists, that extreme heat events can be tied to climate change. So that when more heat energy is in the atmosphere, you expect more storms.
Okay, so let me go back to you, Ken. Ken, let me ask you this. This is what concerns me about this whole debate, regardless of which side you're on. The number of Americans who believe global warming isn't happening has risen to 23%, up 7 points since April 2013. How is it a good idea that Americans are being persuaded it doesn't exist, if there's even a 1% chance that it does exist? And given that 80% of scientists all think it does, obviously the chances are much higher. But even if you believe your version, that it's all a load of phooey, is it really helpful to anybody that we just take a risk and do nothing?
By the way, I just want to say to Bill, too, that, some of the catastrophic things that happen and the terrible things that happen in the world, even death, the fact that we die, is because of the fall, not because of the flood. But, first of all, the debate tonight was not about global warming. It wasn't about climate change. The debate tonight was about creation, evolution, about science.
No, I know, but I just asked you a question about global warming.
In actual fact, in actual fact, one of the emphases I brought tonight was that we need to understand the difference between talking about the past, historical science, and observational science in the present. And if we're going to talk about climate change, we need to apply that. For instance, there are things we can directly observe. We've got records of temperatures, and we can understand when things have been warming, which they were a bit in the past, and now they're cooling again. And we've got records going back a fair way to show those things happen, and those things do happen in this world. But when it comes to interpreting exactly why, I mean, there are some scientists that think that the activity of the sun has a lot to do with the climate on Earth. There's some that believe that.
Ken, here's the point. 80% of climate scientists believe global warming is a real and present thing. So you're in the massive minority, and yet you're a very vocal minority, and that vocality is basically
I didn't even tell you what I believe about global warming.
Well, what do you believe then?
I didn't tell you what I believe about global warming. I didn't say I believe in global warming. In fact,
well,
I believe in climate change because we see that and we have records of that.
Right. Sorry, I was under the assumption you don't believe in global warming as an entity.
Well, no. Where have I ever said that? I've never said that.
You mentioned it on a radio broadcast. That's there was a link to it.
One of the things that we say is the fact that climates do change, and we need to do a lot of investigation as to what's actually happening and why that's happening. There's a difference between what you observe and then interpreting the reasons, and different scientists have different reasons. A lot more research needs to be done in this area.
Do you believe, Ken, do you believe, as I'm led to believe you believe, that dinosaurs and man coexisted?
Actually, based on the Bible, I believe that all the land animals were made on day 6, and Adam and Eve were made on day 6. And people try to make fun of us believing that we believe that dinosaurs live with people, but there's a lot of animals alive today that, according to evolutionists, live with dinosaurs, and some of them, like crocodiles and for instance, the horseshoe crab, supposedly evolved before dinosaurs, and they live today with people. So what's so remarkable about believing that
we
dinosaurs
find fossil
live
bones
with humans?
Right, but we find fossil bones of dinosaurs going back 70 million years. Are you suggesting then that man existed 70 million years ago?
No, I'm not saying 70 million years, and you don't find dinosaur bones with labels on them. Where did you get the 70 million years from? Prove that to me.
Okay, Bill, let's turn back to you.
The problem,
Bill, let's turn back to you. I mean,
the trouble that
go on, respond.
Well, the trouble is that the climate deniers, just to get back to that question, are introducing this idea that scientific uncertainty, especially about any one weather event like we're having here in Kentucky, is the same as scientific doubt about the whole thing. And that is a tactic that's been used for a long time. The cigarette industry is held up as the people do this. And my concern, and the reason I accepted this challenge, this debate tonight, is that we will raise a generation of science students who don't embrace the process of science, who get confused by the idea that scientific uncertainty is the same as scientific doubt. And this is not in our best interest. Now, as you know, I was born in the U.S., I'm a U.S. citizen, I want the U.S. to succeed, and I do not want the U.S. to raise a generation of science students who don't appreciate the process of science. Now, when it comes to humans living with dinosaurs, that's an extraordinary claim for which, for me, there's absolutely no proof at all, none. Furthermore, I claim I challenged you, Ken, on this great flood that happened only 4,000 years ago. And in my opinion, Ken, with all due respect, as we like to say, you never got around to saying why there's this extraordinary number of snow ice layers in ice cores, these extraordinarily old trees, and why, for whatever reason, radiometric dating would not be true. Would not be accurate.
Oh, remember,
how can there be light from stars that are more than 6,000 light years away, and so on?
Yeah, well, we covered some of these things in the debate, as you know, and when even looking at tree rings, you have to make assumptions. Was it 1 a year, 2 a year, or whatever? And even matching up different trees, there's assumptions involved in how they match those rings together. And ice can form very quickly in a game with ice cores.
Gentlemen,
so to me, you're once again introducing doubt.
Gentlemen,
introducing doubt instead of
I've got to call a truce.
Thank you, Piers.
You've been at it all night. You've been at it on my show for not all night, but please come back again and we'll continue it. Thank you very much.